The rest is down to sharp eyes, silence, and impeccable muscle control. Like most felines, the karakál will play with his subdued quarry before dealing the final blow. A solitary animal, at home in any terrain, the karakál can catch rock hyraxes and rabbits on the mountainside as easily as guinea fowl and hares down in the valley.
They're together again. The usual suspects. The top ocean predators gather together from all over the world in a media feeding frenzy to the one place they know they're welcome. Shark Week on the Discovery Channel. It's compelling. You can't help but watch. A lineup of highly charismatic villains with an inclination.
He's learning what his wings can do. Normally this should last a few months, with his parents looking after him, feeding him and showing him how to hunt. But instead, for 3 days, they leave him on his own, learning the tricks of the wind. While Emayeni and Kwateli concentrate on the newcomer in the lower nest, and on the other egg, which is on the verge of hatching. So on the 3rd day, with the second chick about to hatch, the juvenile is soaring over the gorge. When again, Kwateli turns on his offspring. The father should be teaching his fledgling how to hunt, how to fly, how to eat. Instead, Kwateli seems intent on driving him away. The possibility of an injured bird seems to interest the karakál, who watches the struggle intently. For the juvenile, it's the aerial equivalent of sink or swim. In trying to dodge Kwateli, he displays flying skills far beyond his age. Then Emayeni leaves the chick and the unhatched egg, and this time, instead of defending her offspring, she mimics her mate's behavior. The chick is left to swelter in the sun. And not so many months ago, this was a chick. Emayeni and Kwateli hunted for him, fed him, shaded him, kept his nest fresh and brought him up to fledging. And now he's being pushed out. A juvenile that hasn't been taught to hunt is a lot less threatening to the chick than, for instance, the hot sunshine. The juvenile is finally forced to land, while the karakál watches. The one thing the young bird has yet to appreciate are the specifics of the world's dangers. As soon as the juvenile launches again, Kwateli is after him, although there's at least an uncharacteristic attempt to strike back. And Emayeni returns at last to make some shade. Finally, the juvenile takes the hint and leaves the gorge, the only world he knows. After travelling about 2 kilometers, he lands in a strange place. He's on his own now, an outcast. Unless his parents feed him, he won't eat. Unless they protect him, he will be vulnerable to predators. Evening sets in. A male widow bird displays his tail. And the karakál begins the night's hunt. The widow bird sounds the alarm. The guinea fowl react without knowing what or where the danger is. Black Eagle's second egg cracked during the night, and Emayeni now gives the new chick its first meal. The hatching of the second chick coincides with the breeding of other birds in the gorge, a rock pigeon, for example. The new chick means a lot more work for Kwetele, and more time spent searching the cliffs and crevices for food to feed this expanded family. The juvenile uncharacteristically sleeps on the ground, unaware of the dangers lurking in the cliffs. Kwetele spots something. And catches it, a guinea fowl. And then he takes it not to the nest, but 2 kilometers away, to the juvenile. So that explains what he and Emayeni were trying to do. They wanted the juvenile out of the gorge, away from the chicks. However, Kwetele will still feed him and help raise him. Back at the nest, there's prosperity too. Could these eagles actually break all the rules and produce 3 offspring in 1 year? It's highly unlikely. Black eagles almost always lay 2 eggs and have 2 hatchlings, and the larger one, the firstborn, almost always kills its sibling. It's known as the Cain and Abel struggle. And in this nest, with Emayeni seemingly unperturbed, the elder chick, Cain, is well on its way to doing what its genes command it to do. The juvenile's genes, meanwhile, are commanding him to practice grabbing, to anticipate hunting. Emayeni takes the brunt of the heat on a nest she can't leave, at a time of year when she shouldn't by rights be stuck there. Down at the stream, Kwetele at least can cool down. But the South African summer often brings its own relief, in the form of winds blowing down over the hills. Winds Kwetele can ride. Eagles seem to enjoy wind and the kind of acrobatics it allows. That is, they seem to enjoy it up to a point, until it escalates and turns into a full-blown storm. Then Kwateli can only sit it out, which means no hunting at a time when Emayeni, the chicks and the juvenile are all depending on him. So he has no choice. Even in this wind and blinding mist, he has to hunt. But on the ground, the karakál appears to thrive in the storm's confusion. He quickly singles out a nervous rock rabbit, and just as quickly loses it. The hills echo the approaching storm, but over large parts of the landscape there's no rain. The sky might as well be throwing down lighted matches, because soon large parts of the mountain landscape are on fire. Mourning and devastation. Kwateli caught nothing yesterday, and today there's just bleakness. The family has not eaten in almost 2 days, and the fires are still burning. At the nest, there's a hungry mother and 2 hungry chicks, one faring far worse than the other. The fire is getting closer, but the fire and even the sun are less threatening now than starvation. Emayeni can't wait any longer. Red-winged starlings mob her as she starts off. It becomes obvious why Kwateli hasn't brought any food. In the nest, the dominant chick Cain continues its ruthless quest to be the sole survivor. Kwateli's hunt has carried him into unknown territory, and he is mobbed by a resident sparrowhawk. Finally, an unburnt stretch and a rabbit. The attempt is foiled. Why, it might be asked, do black eagles always lay 2 eggs when one of the resulting chicks is destined to kill the other? Insurance, maybe. If something goes wrong with one egg, there would be a spare. But added insurance can only go so far. It can't change the fact that it's the wrong season to have offspring. The sun's too hot. And now even Cain starts to falter. The younger chick will not live, but this chick's survival is also far from assured. It needs food, and most of all, it needs shade. Emayeni too is desperate. There's no food in the usual places. It's a last resort, but there is the griffon vulture colony, with its stock of chicks. But the age-old conflict between black eagles and Cape griffons has sharpened the griffin's senses. They are seldom caught unawares. Emayeni must find food and get back. But the grass fires have spread way beyond the home gorge. And even the karakál has been pushed out of its own territory and is now moving towards the gorge where the juvenile eagle is sitting. At the sight of this unusual intruder into his gorge, the juvenile's hunger is instinctively joined by fear. Unsuccessful, Kwateli and Emayeni begin their long flight back to the two young chicks. Cain is desperate and searches the horizon for any sign of his parents. His younger sibling has almost succumbed to the heat. Fortune is to be on the side of the juvenile, because as Emayeni and Kwateli fly over his gorge, they spot the karakál and see a critical situation unfolding. The juvenile's senses are alert. Emayeni swoops at the cat, and it dodges into a crag. Kwateli judges his moment carefully. This is a conflict born over timeless generations, and the karakál knows the trees will shield him from the raking talons. Emayeni and Kwateli manage to chase it to the other side of the gorge, but no further. It stands its ground. By the time Kwateli and Emayeni reach their nest, the late afternoon shadows have crept up the cliff to provide relief from the relentless sun. They return to a terrible scene. The younger chick is dead. Kwateli lashes out at his mate. But it's Emayeni who rules the nest, and it's she who must deal with the day's misfortunes. As she begins to pick up the dead chick, Kwateli leaves. The storm is over and the fires have burnt themselves out. Once again, a quiet summer night. The karakál begins its prowl. The moonlight helps. Although even on the darkest nights, a karakál can find prey. The faint chirping means the juvenile hasn't moved. The karakál follows its ears. A few clouds start to drift across the moon. In the near total darkness, the karakál makes his kill. Morning, and back at the Eagle's Gorge, Kane has survived the night, but he needs food desperately. Emayeni and Kwateli have been hunting together since early dawn. They finally spot something that has both survived the fire and come into the open. In a true display of Black Eagle cooperative hunting, Emayeni flushes the quarry out. Kwateli strikes behind her. Throwing caution to the wind, he recklessly tumbles down the cliff, gripping his prey. A rock rabbit. Their only hope today was teamwork. Anything they saw had to be caught, and their chances increase when they hunt together. But once again, they have both been gone from the nest for a long time. But it's been a gamble to save the original gamble. The decision to breed out of season. The risk was leaving their surviving chick unattended in the summer sun. They may have pushed their luck too far. When they finally get back to the gorge and to the cliff where they ambitiously built their 2 working nests, they find the second chick is dead. It's Kwateli who's first to the nest and the body. He takes in the total failure at their attempt at summer breeding. As hungry as he is, Kwateli abandons the rabbit. He leaves it and the dead chick to Emayeni. Her reaction in the end is a little more practical. She has a fresh rabbit. And she also has another hungry offspring. The juvenile, the one she started with, and one that's also suffered greatly from the experiment in double brooding. Attacked by his parents and ultimately exiled to another gorge, defenseless, not knowing how to feed himself and never knowing when or if another meal will be flown in, Emayeni lands at the place where she last saw the juvenile. But the familiar calling of the juvenile does not greet her. This year, the Black Eagles gambled with their breeding and ended up losing everything. 3 chicks hatched, 3 died. They can rest now and spend what's left of the summer hunting for themselves and getting the nest ready for the following winter. The next winter, the crew that made this film went back to the mountains. To the Black Eagles. Emayeni was still there. Kwateli was still performing his acrobatics. The karakál was there too, resting in the grass and watching and waiting. And when the crew followed Emayeni back to her nest, the upper one, the one last year's juvenile had been raised in, there were 3 chicks there, 3 of them. Last year, they were the first black eagles ever known to have tried double brooding. This year, they were the first ever known to have 3 chicks in one clutch.